Well, good day, folks, and welcome back to the Secret Solve. This is a program where I look at the images and verses presented to us in the book The Secret by Byron Price, and I work at trying to figure out how the puzzles were solved and or how to solve the puzzle. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the puzzle that was solved in Cleveland, Ohio. And it was solved in the cultural gardens there with some information about Rockefeller. And so let's just get into the fling of things. I'm not going to do a long winded presentation on the information that's already been presented for this solve because I think a lot of people have discussed some of the things that are in the images. But I just wanted to point out a few things that perhaps may have been misinterpreted or perhaps could be interpreted better. So in the B45 area, the AB, the doughboy hat, I actually wanted to point out that I think this is probably a pith helmet more so than a doughboy hat because of the shape of it and some later information I will provide about somebody that liked to spelunk looking for treasures in the part of the world where the Asmats inhibited. Secondly, I want to point out that this has a reddish face, a young boy, if you will. It's not an older person. And also that the hair appears to be fake hair, as in the family may have propesia, balding. Notice that the arms and the torso are almost completely hairless, and so is the actual centaur itself. And so, looking at a hairless appearing person here, notice that the fingers are missing, and only fingers actually holding the goblet are the ones. And also notice the middle finger is pronounced. So the middle finger is pronounced. So the reason the middle finger is pronounced is this is a Roosevelt salute made famous by Nelson Rockefeller upon giving a speech. He was a little disgruntled with people. So if you stare at that finger again, look at it some more, stare at it, you'll notice that finger is elongated. Also in the trees back here, you will see a number of piranha fishes. The fishes are mainly over here on the, let's say, the CB 789 area. But there's also some of these piranha fish and the six. There's one really nice one in like the 6C area with a nice little eyeball defined. And so, yeah, the tail is not quite connected to the image figure, nor are the legs. In fact, the torso is somewhat separated. Another good location for some of these little piranha fishes is look at the G and H. Just look at the whole entire brick, that long structure. There's a bunch of piranhas in there. There's also an alligator, if you will, right underneath the ball. Nice little alligator in there. There's more of these fishes in the next one. There's some more of them in the next area below. And then when you get over here to the below the 1881 and 8 area, you'll see the little eyeballs sticking out at you. Then you'll see little eyeballs. There's a heart over here, a little tiny heart in the JK 1-2. But people have been wondering about the 1442 and 1881 and trying to explain why those are perhaps backwards coordinates. It's not so hard to really explain this. Another part of the Rockefeller family history is dyslexia. If you just read about the Rockefeller family, you'll understand the image better. But the backwardsness of the whole entire puzzle, where you have to count from the left to the right in order to get to the correct planter box. If you use the directions, some people say, oh, you got to go count it from the other side and then walk around the wall. No, the authors were putting in the dyslexic aspect of the Rockefeller in the family. The D in the little emblem, looks like a D, looks like a Rockefeller, if you will. So the clown face, I've got Some people say it's a clown. I think it's a Asmat warrior tribal mask. So you've got the Asmat tribal warrior mask saying there right under the D. We've had it pretty well explained: the planter box, the Liberty Bell, the flower, the two columns for the search, the back appearing rocky structure. If you look at Rockefeller's one of their houses that they retired in New York, it's actually that rocky appearance, if you will. And so, just a few items. The hooves are a little bit detached, if you will. The Euclid symbol actually points directly. If you follow the area, it follows the little ball at the G2. It points directly to which side of the planter box you need to dig on. So, I mean, it was a little easier than you might originally have thought. But by using the dyslexia and there's a series of marks back behind where the face is of the guy that can give you some more additional clues to this. So anyway, let's just look at some of the tabs that I have marked, and if you want to follow along with me, you can go to my uh, article on WordPress. So one of the things I'm going to point out is the shape of the helmet. I already pointed out. I pointed out the Rockefeller actual his house and what it looked like. Um, the Cleveland torso murderer, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury, I think deserves a mention here because uh, another name for this area was the Hobo Jungle. And anytime you can tie like New Guinea, a jungle, to this, and the Elliot Ness obviously was a big figure, if you will. Um, the animal is also castrated, and so um, you have that aspect as well. Um, so the one of these victims of the torso murderer was uh, this guy who was called the Jiggs character. And the Jiggs character had on his left ankle an image of Cupid on his right ankle. And so if you look in the background by that clown face, you might see some of the stuff that might be related to, oh, let's just say that. Um, and this all happened during the Great Lakes expedition. So the next article is about Michael Rockefeller. Michael Rockefeller is the guy that disappeared in Guinea. The fact that National Lampoon wrote about him uh, in their magazine would indicate that the authors were familiar with the story of um, him. They actually did a story titled "The New Guinea Pig." And I've included a link to the actual comic cover page that shows Michael on some island being, well, let's just say he wasn't eaten. He was taken care of by the natives. He turned them into sex slaves and people that would work for him. Um, Norman Rockefeller is obviously Michael Clark Rockefeller's father. And so he ended up being vice president of the United States by appointment under the Ford administration. When I was growing up during the Ford Watergate, the whole entire thing. And so this guy was high profile, would have been read about in the newspapers. And one of the interesting things about him is that he probably lost the ability to run for president because back in the time, he was divorced, and the idea of a divorced guy running for president was actually not very politically correct, and so he even actually got dumped by Dole, or not by Ford, in favor of Bob Dole, and then obviously they lost to Jimmy Carter in the election, and so who knows if maybe if in the 74 or in the election, if he'd have been the running mate instead of Dole, they might have won. But he's also an interesting character because he gave a lot of money away to some of his really good friends, and he also had a kind of a mean streak in him, and he had people write books about people he didn't like, spreading rumors and innuendo and stuff like that. But his first wife was Mary Toddhunter, and I always thought that was Hunter Toddhunter, and just okay, that was a little interesting. And then he married the second wife, and her name was Happy Murphy. And the thing about it is, in the back of the book, I never could figure out why they mentioned the Murphy bed until I realized that there's this affair that possibly happened before Rockefeller divorced his first wife, that he might have had with a Happy Murphy in the bedroom, a Murphy bed, if you will. And so it was largely known, but not greatly rumored, that he may have fathered another daughter when she was married to Murphy. And this was kind of scurrilously talked about a little bit, but nobody's ever really came forward and definitively done a test or anything like that. So that's kind of the interesting. Rockefeller lived at the top of 810 Fifth Avenue in New York with his first wife, Mary Toddhunter. And so Dr. James Slater Murphy was the guy that ended up losing his wife to old Nelson. They were buddies. In his diary, Rockefeller intimate Ken Ryland used a tone of knowing irony when mentioning Melinda, putting the word stepfather quote in quotes. Another confidant claimed that Melinda's parentage was an open secret among the Rockefeller associates. Okay, so he ended up divorcing his first wife. He gets married to this lady that's like 18 years younger than he is, or maybe 18 or 19 years. He ends up having two more children. Okay, so that's some information about Rockefeller. Happy Rockefeller, otherwise known as Margaretta Large Happy Rockefeller, formerly Fittler. And so she was a Fittler. That was her original name. And then, so anyway, she was born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and famously married the doctor. And she became a virologist at the Rockefeller Institute. And, after, being good friends and stuff, he ended up divorcing his first wife and marrying her. Mary Rockefeller, otherwise known as Mary Toddhunter Clark Rockefeller, she was the first wife of Nelson Rockefeller. He became vice president. Although, she never got to be the first lady because, she was divorced from him by the time he became vice president. So she never, well, actually, it would have been second lady, if you will. And so she actually didn't marry after she divorced her husband in 1962. And she divorced him because of extreme mental cruelty. And that divorce was granted in Reno, Nevada. Yeah, she lived to be 91 and just died in 1999. So I was Mary Toddhunter. Okay, so the next link is the KleinLetters.com blog. And here you can actually see the first page of this new guinea pig thing that they did with old Nelson, his kid, Michael. The next one is, well, since there was, I put Thurgood Marshall in here, but I don't think that probably has so much to do with it. So my next thing was to take a tour of the general area in which this was found. And I found this monastery campus called the Stonebrook Monastery and the Michael R. White schools. And so back in 2015, they remodeled this property into a school. But before, it was called the Amasa Stonehouse, Masa Stone House. And so Amasa Stonehouse. Now, how ironic is it that a dyslexic could make an anagram of the Amasa Stonehouse and turn that into the ASMAT? The ASMAT. But anyway, this is a building atop the Rockefeller Cultural Gardens, and it's basically right adjacent to the spot in which the item was found. And so I find it highly suspect that none of the people that actually found this treasure used this as a reason for looking in that area, because it has so much to do with the particular idea. So the Massa Stonehouse, otherwise known as the Asmat Dyslexic House, so it was dedicated in 1877 as a home for aged women. Served as an independent home for Protestant gentlewomen of 60 years of age or older until merging with the A.M. McGregor home in 1987. The Amasa Stone, the guy by the name of Amasa Stone, this is a man's name, built and endowed the home as a gift to the Women's Christian Association, the WCA, to give old age the security it deserves, the care it needs, and the atmosphere of love and refinement it enjoys. Okay, so in after it being at several different locations, in 1931, a new building named the Stone House was constructed at 975 East Boulevard. Samuel Mather, Stone's son-in-law, contributed two-thirds of the building cost. And in 1977, the facility was home to 50 elderly women and employed a staff of 54. Neither religious requirement nor the provision required residents to sign over their property was in effect at this time. The house was later sold in 87. But anyway, it's interesting that they have this women's elderly home that if you anagram it out, you get ASMAT. So Stone, Amasa, he was a railroad manager. We've had all these people say, you need to look into the railroad history in order to solve these puzzles. Well, he did. This guy also was part of the Cleveland Rolling Mill, which is in the Iron Works. And on December 1876, a Lakeshore Road, Howe Trust Bridge. Okay, so Amasa Stone and his partners had a patent to build railroad structures, and they had built many of these across the nation, but one of them failed. So what happened is a lot of people died, similar to the Chicago. Oh, we haven't got to Chicago yet, and the train accident that happened right near the site where that one was found. Okay, maybe this is a precursor where Cleveland now are moving over to the train. I don't know. It's got to be in that park. What is it? Herman Park? Because there's a train there. Okay, guys, you've been having fun with the community for years. I am dispelling all your crap. I'm going to just point out why you've been saying these things. Okay. So anyway, the guy ended up committing suicide because, and several people committed suicide over this railway disaster. The U.S. Steel Corp is what, eventually came as another part of the back of the book that leads into the Cleveland Solve. Flora Stone Mather, and this is the daughter of Amasa Stone, basically married this guy by the name of Samuel Mather, and that's the person that gave the two-thirds of the money to build the thing. There's not really a whole much here, but In 1896, Mrs. Mather founded Goodrich House in honor of her childhood pastor, the Reverend William H. Goodrich. Uh, and we talk about the Consumers League and all these other, I don't know, things. Dr. Hiram C. Hayden of the Old Stone Church, of which Mrs. Mather belonged for her entire lifetime. She died in 1909. Samuel Mather, talked about him. Okay, the next item is, there's nothing there. Sam Miller. So Samuel Henry Miller is an American businessman and philanthropist who propelled the growth of Forest City Material Company. It was a lumber and real estate company. They owned a bunch of malls. He was the first Jewish person to receive an Archbishop Edward F. Hoban Award for service to the Catholic Church. Miller's father immigrated from Russia to Ellis Island and then became a junk peddler in Cleveland. His son would ride along with him in a horse-drawn carriage as he conducted his business. Miller had a degree from Case Western University and a master's from Harvard Business School. They all went to Harvard. It's the Harvard Lampoon, folks. They just went back and looked at some people that graduated from Harvard. Then they indexed that by Jewish people. Then they indexed that by Jewish people that came from Russia. And that's how they come up with all these people in here. Well, I mention him because there's a park in this general area named after Sam Miller. They dedicated the park in 1997. I don't know if it was called Miller Park before then, but it could certainly garner a mention here as well. William Gordon is also an important person because he's a wholesale grocer and iron ore dealer, best remembered for his gift of Gordon Park to Cleveland. He was born in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and he learned the wholesale grocery business. Now, there's a whole section in the back of the book that talks about Armour Foods, the grocery business, and I wonder if that was to lead us into somebody like this guy. But this guy also was eventually got into iron ore and made a fortune in that. But the main thing is he started turning this area into a park, and he accumulated 122 acres, which at his death he deeded to Cleveland, provided it be forever maintained and kept open to the public under the name of Gordon Park. And he did this way, way back in 1872. So again, he had this. So there's now a 9-year lease on that area. But that area kind of leads into this area where this is found. So I looked up the St. Mary's Seminary on Ansel Road because this is another large building that's kind of got some interesting architectural detail. So I thought maybe this might play into the solve. It talks about a Bishop Joseph Schrems and his desires to move the seminary to a new site. And so they purchased a plot of land at Superior and Ansel Roads and constructed a Spanish mission-style building in 1924 on that site. The seminary then provided undergraduate and graduate theology programs for Cleveland students until 1954. And I think it continued to act as a theological school until September of 1990. So it was probably operating as a seminary at that point, and we've already established that there are several religious references in the back of the book and in these puzzles, from the dress and attire that some of these people are wearing to some of the other mentions in the book concerning religion. And so we kind of know that maybe this is where that comes into play. I don't know. But there's the St. Mary's Seminary. Joseph Schrems was the fifth bishop of this diocese of Cleveland. He's a German. Came to America at 11 and studied uh, uh, at Latrobe, Pennsylvania, before teaching at Louisville, Kentucky. He studied for the priesthood in Quebec and Montreal. Okay, again, you're looking at Joseph Schrems, who was involved in the building of the St. Mary's and his history. The history of these people all kind of all together. So then you can look at the history of Doane Brook. So this is actually kind of Doane Brook. This is where the treasure was found. You can see Doane Brook right on the current map today. And so Nathaniel and Sarah Doane and their 6 children settled beside the Doane Brook. This area became the ford on the main road between Buffalo and Cleveland. Now it's the intersection of Euclid Avenue and East 105th Street. So you get some information. There was a grist mill on Doane Brook Gorge. Again, Milwaukee. People that want to tell you that there's a grist mill involved, there you go. You can have your grist mill. So Horseshoe Lake Dam, originally built by the Shakers in 1852. There's some information about that as well. So, and looking at the verse that they match to this, verse number 4. So, beneath 2 countries, as the road curves in a rectangular plot, beneath the 10th stone from right to left. Now, again, we're trying to get into the dyslexia of the Rockefeller family. Beneath the 9th row from the top of the wall, including small bricks. 7 steps up, you can hop. Now, I don't know if this 7 steps up, you can hop reference and it has anything to do with the fact that the Rockefellers, Nelson Rockefeller's wife in particular, had this collection of various things, and one of them they had was this kangaroo that came from the Asmat area. So I don't know if they're trying to get you back to the Asmats at that point or not. From the bottom level, the 3 gay Socrates, Pindar, and Apelles, the 3 gay, by the way, philosophers, free speech couplet Birch. I guess we're going with that is having to do with, well, they've explained what they think that is. To find a cast destination, seek the columns for the search. And I've been suspect of that word columns. And in architecture, it's a vertical element, usually a rounded shaft with a capital and a base, which in most cases serves as support. One of 2 or more vertical sections of printed page separated by a rule or blank space. The news article takes up 3 columns. So I've always been suspect that maybe column is the vertical arrangement of items printed or written on a page is the first definition of column. So I'm wondering if this has to do with newspaper articles as a way to confirm that you're getting back to the right place. C in the definition is the accumulation arranged vertical, as in columns of paint cans. D is one and usually read series of newspapers or magazine articles, the gossip column or advice columns. So I'm wondering if the back of the book where they show all the gossip columns and all of the advice columns and stories is what they're trying to get you to, or whether they're trying to get you to a supporting pillar, or something resembling a column, as in a column of water or a column of smoke. The other alternative definition is a tube or cylinder in which a chromographic separation takes place, or a long row, as of in soldiers. Oh, like as in Patton's column. One of the vertical lines of an element of a determinant or matrix, a statistical category or grouping. So I don't know. You can take the simplistic approach that they're trying to give you, just that they're telling you that there's a column. So from the verses explanation, this I think is one of the more easier puzzles to take the verse and just simply walk it down. I mean, you don't have to do a whole lot if you figure out the two countries and where the road curves. And so I think they're relying upon you getting most of the information for your solve from the visual clues that are in the image, like the propesia, the actual shape of the building in the background that's been identified, and the centaur itself. But I think if you look, the word centaur is actually used in the back of the book. There's many references to the Cleveland businesses in this area, and so I think you can derive that. But the question then becomes, why do you use verse 4 with image 4? Why don't you try to mismatch it with some of the other verses? In other words, what in this image would tell you that there's two countries and as the road curves? Well, there is a curving road in there in the image, with the shape of the helmet, right? But how would you? I mean, there's plenty of stones, but some of the other images have a bunch of stones in them. And beneath the ninth row from the top, small bricks. I guess you have to include the bricks at the bottom that's in the snow. And maybe that's how you help in saying that, hey, this is the image that goes with that. But there's no place in the Socrates, Pindar, and Apelles would you want to believe that the image goes with the verse. And there are birch trees in the background. I believe those are white birch. So you could couple, if you will, the image with the verse using the birch. So through a process of elimination, how many of the other puzzle pictures have a birch in it, if you will? How many of the other images have columns in it? My point I'm trying to make here is that if you can take verse 4 and you can match it to image 4 with actual words that clue in to items that are in the image, and that you actually see those items in the image, why wouldn't you try to do that with, let's say, verse 3 matching image 3 and seeing if there's anything that would match up with the two? And when I did my presentation earlier on Thucydides and Xenophon, and pointed out that those are military leaders. I'm looking at a picture of a military leader. You know what I'm saying? So I guess it seems like there's a reasonable rationale for maybe trying that, just as I did in verse 2 with at the place where jewels abound. And then all the puzzles have jewels in them. But, if you just look at how they maybe put these puzzles together, it might work out better to look at it that way. All right. Well, so in summary, the Cleveland puzzle was solved. How it was actually solved, I guess we've had some descriptions, but I think my explanation of the dyslexia, the propesia, and these other elements of Michael Rockefeller will help you fill in the blanks as to why and how this location could have been arrived at. So at this point, I'd like to give you a dyslexic goodbye and say bye, Doog, or would that be Yibi? Doog. Happy asthmating.